All right, today we're diving into a set of ancient laws that are, well, pretty intense. These decrees were so specific and so stark that they literally formed the blueprint for an entire nation. They defined everything from who you could marry to how you worshipped, and it all came from one single powerful idea. And this is it. This one sentence is the key that unlocks everything else we're about to explore. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a core statement of identity. The command to be holy basically means to be set apart. And that one principle, separation, is the engine driving every single law we're going to look at.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with that main command to be holy. Then we'll get into the heavy stuff, the capital crimes related to God and family. After that, we'll dive into a very detailed code of sexual conduct. Then we'll see how these ideas stretched into spiritual purity. And finally, we'll get to the big why, the text's own reason for this entire system. Okay, let's start right at the beginning with this foundational command. You really have to get this part because without it, these decrees just seem like a random list of really harsh rules. But once you understand this core principle, a kind of logic starts to fall into place.
So, what does holiness even mean in this context? Well, it's not about being personally perfect. It's about being dedicated or set apart, fundamentally different from all the other cultures around you. The passage is basically saying, your God is different, so you need to be different too. It's about being a distinct group with a very specific purpose.
So this idea of being holy immediately leads to laws with the highest possible stakes. Seriously, we're jumping right into the deep end. These first decrees are all punishable by death, and they're treated as attacks on the very spiritual and social bedrock of the community. The first capital crime on the list is child sacrifice to a foreign god named Molech. But what's really striking is the punishment. This isn't some formal execution. The text commands the members of the community to do it themselves by stoning. It makes the punishment a collective, public responsibility. And there's another layer to this. It's a two-pronged judgment. If the community fails to act, if they look the other way, the text says God himself will personally step in. He'll turn against the offender and their entire family. So you have pressure from your neighbors and pressure from above. There's really no way out. Wow, this one really shows you how critical the family structure was. Just cursing your parents was a capital offense. You have to remember, in that kind of ancient society, the family unit was everything. It was your social security, your bank, your whole support system. So an attack on your parents was seen as an attack on society itself. All right, so from the family hierarchy, the text moves into its most detailed section, a very strict code about sexual relationships. These laws were designed to create really clear, uncrossable boundaries that would define the community's entire moral compass. The law against adultery is super clear and severe. But notice something important here, a kind of balanced justice. The decree holds both the man and the woman equally responsible, and they both face the exact same ultimate penalty. And this table gives you a quick summary of several other capital offenses. The passage just methodically lists them out: a man with his father's wife, a man with his daughter-in-law, a man with another man, and the death penalty is applied consistently. It also forbids relations with animals, calling it a perversion, and interestingly, commands that the animal involved must also be killed. Now, among all these rules, one really stands out because of its punishment. For marrying both a woman and her mother, which the text calls wicked, the decree is that all three of them must be burned in the fire. This is different from stoning, and it seems to signal that this specific act was seen as uniquely abhorrent. But hey, not all of these forbidden relationships ended in a death sentence. For other things, like marrying a sister or a brother's wife, the consequences were different. Often, the punishment was to be cut off from the people, or to be childless. And being cut off was no small thing. It was basically excommunication. You'd lose all protection and support from your community. Now, this whole idea of being set apart goes way beyond just social and sexual behavior. The laws also get into spiritual practices and even biology, creating this really comprehensive system of separation from other cultures. For instance, the text comes down really hard on anyone turning to mediums or spiritists for guidance. It actually calls it prostituting yourself, which is the same strong language it uses for worshiping idols. And the consequence here is direct divine intervention. God himself will cut that person off from the community.
And just in case you missed how serious this was, the chapter basically ends by doubling down on this point. It says flat out that any medium or spiritist found living among the people must be put to death by stoning. Putting that right at the end is like a powerful exclamation point on the whole thing.
This principle of separation also showed up in everyday life, especially with dietary laws. The command to distinguish between clean and unclean animals was this tangible, daily reminder to the people of their unique identity and their need to avoid what the text calls defilement.
So this brings us to the big question, right? We've seen this long list of really strict, often incredibly severe rules. But the text doesn't just list them and walk away. It gives a very clear reason why. What was the ultimate point of this entire framework?
The passage itself gives us the answer. It directly connects following these laws to the nation's destiny, to their relationship with God and with the very land they were supposed to inherit.
This is one of the most incredible phrases in the whole passage. The land itself is personified, like it's a living thing with a moral compass that will physically reject people who defile it. So, following these rules isn't just a good idea, it's framed as the absolute requirement for even being able to live in the Promised Land. And to make the point crystal clear, the text draws a sharp contrast. It says the whole reason the previous nations were driven out was because they did all this forbidden stuff. Their behavior is held up as the ultimate negative example, a huge warning of what not to do. So here's the complete logic, all laid out. It's a clear cause and effect progression. Step 1, keep the laws. Step 2, don't live like the other nations. Step 3, fulfill your calling to be a people set apart. And the result? Step 4, you get to inherit the land. It's presented as a direct formula. And ultimately, it all comes full circle. Every single decree, from child sacrifice all the way down to dietary rules, was a tool meant to forge a specific identity. The goal wasn't just obedience for the sake of obedience. It was about creating a holy people, a nation that belonged to God in a unique and visible way. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. When you step back from this specific text, it makes you think about the broader function of law in any society. How do legal and moral codes, especially ancient ones, do more than just manage behavior? How do they actually shape a people's fundamental idea of who they are and where they're going?